Do you remember the debt ceiling negotiations? Again, one of the benefits of age, yes, you may be getting physically weaker, but you remember all sorts of stuff. You were soaking in it. Other people can only read about it in the history books, especially if people have to read back to figure it out. You were there and you were soaking in the middle of it. During these negotiations, the Republican Party basically said, we don't want to raise the debt ceiling. And they would scream and have these theatrics. I don't want to raise it. I wouldn't put one red penny on my grandkids' future. Look how precious that little baby child is. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'll die on the flag before I do it. I mean, all of these theatrics about the debt ceiling. Then Donald Trump gets in office and what happens? Immediately, bam, $9 trillion. Like magic. Because it is magic. Money's not real. So, you can 9 trillion, 10 trillion, 20 trillion, whatever. Who cares? Debt ceiling. There it is. And they did it for Trump. And they used that as a weapon to hobble Obama the entire way through. If you notice, as much money as Donald Trump has spent on tax cuts and everything else, the debt never came up. It's funny how Democrats never bring up the debt during the Republican administrations in the way that Republicans bring up the debt in the Democratic administrations. So hobble Democrats. Never came up. Immediately, as Joe Biden gets elected, on the night he gets elected, got to do something with that debt. Got to do something with that debt. Now, my point is to point out how much of a FU that is to the American public. Because the American public has an expectation that the government is going to function. That you may have your political rancor, but that political rancor stops at the shores of government. And I hope you understand what I mean. It's the difference between the school bus versus the driver of that school bus. You have certain expectations of that driver. You don't want him driving the car and then starts masturbating while your kids are in the car. Whoa, that's not your job. It's the same thing kind of with the bus drivers and the Democrats and Republicans. We have expectations of them to function in a way that keeps government operating efficiently despite the political rancor. The political rancor can't go so far as it undermines and stops the action of government itself. Once it gets to that point, you are basically, I would argue, breaching your job duties. How could you not be breaching your job duties if your job duty is to keep government functioning efficiently and you are taking actions to cripple and hobble government? That's exactly what they were doing. And so, it's a stunning thing for there to be no consequences for that, political or otherwise. But nevertheless, now, different administration. Nancy Pelosi gets into a debt ceiling fight or a budget fight with Trump over the amount of stimulus. The country is hurting. The country had been hurting for months. You had PPP loans that were basically keeping the economy afloat. The United States had basically taken over the function of the United States economy. How was it? We were paying for the loans. We were paying for the small businesses. We were paying money out to the people, $1,200 in addition to money on top of that for people who are getting unemployment. Yes, you had 30 million people lose their jobs. What you have 20 to 40 million people that are out of jobs now. You have all of these people at food banks and food courts. You have people who are sitting outside overnight to get food. California, you had like 50% of the population had like lost their jobs. I'm trying to get across the level of devastation that's there. And that's not even talking about the 250-something thousand that is dead, the 12 million that is COVID, the percentage of people who have after effects from COVID dealing with cognitive degradation and whatnot. I'm making the point that your society hit the Great Depression times 3 or times 4. And depending upon the person and the aspect of the society that was hit, you had the people who were at the poor end of that society hit that much worse. And the people at the upper end doing that much better. So the billionaire class gets like $1 trillion. They are doing monstrously well. The people who are in the middle class, upper class, more or less. The people at the bottom, taking them face. That's what's happened, right? Pelosi and Trump are arguing. Pelosi has a bill for 2.2 or 2.4 trillion. That's what her bill is for. Then Trump says, all right, 1.8. I can get up to 1.8. This is a Republican dragging himself up to 1.8. And fact of the matter is, if Pelosi says yes on the 1.8, all hell would have broke loose if Donald Trump would have turned to the Republicans and they would have told him no. Think about what would have taken place. All of those Trump supporters screaming. They would have been crawling over the White House to try to get to those Republicans that would have been telling Donald Trump no. But Nancy Pelosi wouldn't say it. She, under normal circumstances, Democrats don't have the spine at all. You throw a feather at them, like, oh, they just fall apart. But in this very specific, like, no, 2.2. I'm doing this for the American public. We need 2.2 trillion. That's what we need. And it's like, you're quibbling over $400 million? It's a rounding error in U.S. politics. Why the strength? And then it comes across as, oh, I see. This is you playing politics. You don't want the president to get a budget deal going into the election because that budget deal gives him a win. And so you would stand there and says, yes, I want 2.2 trillion. I'm going to stand strong. And Donald Trump says 1.8. And you basically say no. The American public at this point is hurting. Month. Hurting. The PPP loans collapse. And then you find out, to make it even worse, that the majority of those loans went to the upper class, big business. But the money that was going to people for the unemployment helped. You could see it in the numbers. The money that was going to, I don't know, for fuck's sake, even that $1,200, like those things were vital to people who were in dire straits. And instead of making the deal to ensure that money got out to the American public, Nancy Pelosi decided to play politics. Oh, these deals are too different. These deals are too separate. These deals are too far apart. We can't make this deal. And leave. And the president, who understands what's going on, is dumbstruck. Nancy Pelosi gets what she wants. Joe Biden wins. But interestingly enough, Donald Trump overperforms. Now, I suspect that part of the reason Donald Trump overperformed was because people in this country are so used to getting nothing. They're so used to not having anything from the standpoint of government helping them out. They're usually on their own, despite the fact that there are programs like Medicare and Super Social Security that actually get huge bang for the buck. But I'm saying, under normal circumstances, when you deal with the government, you're dealing with a cop or somebody coming to bug the shit out of you for something that you don't want to be bothered for. So, in that very specific case, these people getting a check, it's mind-blowing. Getting extra money for the PPP, mind-blowing. And so, they look at that and say, the president gets a win. Despite the fact that it's meager and nowhere near as sufficient. It's astonishingly sad. I mean, if you think about it. But ultimately, what she was trying to do didn't entirely work. Because what the public saw was both. Not just Trump, but also Democrats. The Democratic Party lost seats in the House of Representatives when they were supposed to gain seats. They were supposed to improve. And instead of taking the Senate, they are now in this kind of thing where they may get the Senate or may not, depending on what takes place in Georgia. All of the Georgia elections that have been runoffs have gone to Republicans. However, this year is a little different because Georgia went to Biden. So now that Trump has lost, now that he's failed, Nancy Pelosi and the Republicans in the Senate Republicans have said, hey, what we can agree upon is a deal for not 2.2 trillion, not 2.4 trillion, not the 1.8 trillion that Donald Trump was talking about. A little bit under a trillion. Joe Biden comes in. Joe Biden's going to be okay with it. He wants to get the deal done fast. And Nancy Pelosi, okay, I'm okay with that. That's fine. What? 1.8 was unacceptable to Nancy Pelosi just months ago. And now, less than a trillion is perfectly okay. What I'm going to give to you is supermaster strategist Nancy Pelosi, uber chess player, super grandmaster chess player Nancy Pelosi is going to explain to you her 23-dimensional whatever the fuck and how less money is better. And I'm going to explain to you what she wants to say that she can't say. what she wants to say. It's screaming in the statement. It's there. It's at the root of everything she's saying here. But she can't say it aloud. She can't let it out of her mouth because it's bad form and bad posture, even though everybody in that room knows exactly what she's trying to say and know that it's goddamn true. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do this. Also, definitely make sure you are subscribed. YouTube is playing dirty tricks and have been dropping people off. So definitely make sure you subscribe and definitely make sure you hit the little bell notification. Maybe I need to get a little graphic that can just run in the bottom or something. Nevertheless, I wanted to talk about supermaster strategist, grandmaster, Nancy Pelosi, who the public was hurting month after month after month. And Donald Trump got up to $1.8 trillion. And Nancy Pelosi said, no, that's not enough. That is not sufficient for the American public. We need $400 billion more for us to even have a conversation. Otherwise, I don't want to have this conversation. I'm leaving. I'm going to get my ice cream. I'm going to get my hair done. Now, Donald Trump knows what's going on. The political strategist knows what's going on. She's trying to hurt you, sir. She doesn't want you to get a win before the election. Now, the problem and what Donald Trump should have did was say, I accept your offer. $2.2 trillion, I accept it. Fine. Take it. And then turn to the Republican Party and let all hell break loose. Because whatever Mitch McConnell says, if he says I don't have that vote, it doesn't matter. You as a president look like you are fighting hard to get that much money for the American public. Whether you can get it or not is almost irrelevant to the point. I hope you understand what I mean. Just the ferocity, just the fighting his own party. Oh, you're going to give that money to the American public. He's on Twitter just banging away, just in his speeches, or all that stuff. That looks great on a president. It does, even if you're attacking your own party. If you remember, you got in office because you were different than many of the other party members. You got in office because you were attacking Jeb Bush. Your people would have loved seeing you excoriate all of these Republicans for not acting out of the best interests of the American public. And you, Trump, in these rare moments, would have been on the side of the angels. You should have used your powers for good. You didn't do it. You allowed Nancy Pelosi to do this nonsense. So now that Trump has lost, super duper grandmaster strategist Nancy Pelosi is now going to explain to us how getting less money is better than getting more money. There's something here that she wants to say that she can't say. That she can't say. Lord knows she can't say. But it is screaming. It drips out of everything that comes out of her mouth. And I'm going to decode. I'm going to decipher for you at the end of this. Let's hear super duper master strategist Nancy Pelosi explain how getting less money is better for the American public.
Okay. But what shifted, in your opinion, when the Problem Solvers Caucus had a much larger bill a few months ago? You did not like that piece of legislation. What has shifted now when they're on board with this piece that's come out of the Senate?
Perhaps you missed what I said earlier. Joe Biden committed to ending and crushing the virus and having a Build a Better America initiative, Build Back Better, a vaccine, answer to our prayers, an answer to our prayers of 95% effectiveness in terms of Pfizer and Moderna, and there may be others coming forward. That is a total game changer, a new president and a vaccine. So there's nothing to, these are different. What was then before was not more of this. This has simplicity. It's what we've had in our bills. It's for a shorter period of time, but that's okay now because we have a new president, a president who recognizes that we need to depend on science to stop the virus, a president who understands that America's working families need to have money in their pockets in a way that takes them into the future without any of the contraptions of any of the other bills that the administration was associating itself with them before. We feel very excited about the prospect that there's a bipartisan bill, because I told members I'm not bringing any more bills that are not bipartisan. We wanted to show what needs to be done in the interest of negotiation. They're negotiating. It's a good product. It's not everything we want. Don't get me wrong. I don't want the Republicans to think that that this is a dream come true. It is not, but it is a path forward. Yeah.
Not to accept capital.
That's an amazing answer. That's an amazing answer. Nancy Pelosi, why is this better? You're getting less money. Donald Trump was giving you $1.8 trillion. You said you couldn't take it because you wanted $2.2 trillion. Now you're willing to accept even less than $1 trillion. Why is this better? And she goes into this explanation about the bill being simplistic, Joe Biden being in office, and then there's COVID. And it's like, Joe Biden is in office and there's COVID. Yeah, but Joe Biden could have won this election even with you doing the $1.8 trillion. Why are you making an association between Biden being in office and you and your previous negotiations? Am I wrong in this? Like, if you're saying, why is this a better deal? You're getting less money. Beforehand, you wouldn't accept $1.8 trillion. Now you're accepting less than $1 trillion. Why is this better? And you're explaining to me that, well, look, Joe Biden is going to be in office, which, ding, ding, that is the only answer. That is the only answer. The other stuff, right there. My guy got in. But understand the connection between my guy got in and the negotiations with the bill before are intertwined, right? I mean, if you starting this answer off saying, well, Joe Biden is in office and we're going to have a COVID vaccine, and so, the world is different. I can accept that little amount now because, Joe Biden is in office and we have a COVID vaccine. World is different. But why couldn't you get that with the $1.8 trillion? Meaning the COVID vaccine would have still taken place. Joe Biden still potentially would have won unless you believe that passing a $1.8 trillion bill and giving the win to Trump would have somehow inhibited Joe Biden from winning. Is that what you mean? Because from my point of view, you could have accepted a deal for Trump for the $1.8 trillion. Whether or not Trump would have got credit for it or whether or not you would have gotten credit, who knows? But after that, you still would have had the vaccine. That wouldn't have changed one way or the other. And Joe Biden still could have won. And the only way this becomes a different thing is if you believe that the bill is associated with Joe Biden winning, or that not giving Trump that win made Joe Biden's chances better. Maybe I'm reaching here, but that's the way it seems the explanation is. And Nancy Pelosi tells you yourself, it's a new world. Joe Biden is in office. Ding, ding. That's it. Joe Biden is in office. That's it. My guy won. Period. I'm going to accept this trillion, but ultimately, it's worth it. What's worth it? Those months where those people weren't getting any stimulus checks, those months where those people weren't getting additional money for the businesses, all of those businesses that went bankrupt because the money wasn't coming in from the government with the expectation of helping, all of those people who weren't getting the extra and additional income from the standpoint of the jobs that they were doing, all of that money came due. And at the end of this month, the people are going to have to start by paying student loans. People will start by getting evicted. Sheriffs are rearing up. I'm sorry. All of that stuff was being left in the lurch for politics. That's all it was. Politics. Why is this better, Nancy Pelosi? Why is getting less money better? And understand, it's not just getting less money. It's also the businesses that went belly up. The people who didn't have the food or who didn't have the money because they weren't getting the extra money from the government in these jobs and the additional monies that they were getting on top of their regular uninsurance or job insurance, unemployment insurance. I'm making the point that the months of misery after all of this stuff stopped is what Nancy Pelosi put on the table in these negotiations. She didn't make this deal because she believed this deal would have been in the best interest of Trump. Conjecture, yes. But in not making that deal because she thought it was in the best interest of Trump, she is now willing to make this new deal. But understand, this is not just money. You're talking about businesses that are gone and are not coming back. People who are impoverished, who are already impoverished, who are now in deeper poverty. People who weren't getting additional money. States that weren't getting additional money. I mean, that money, $1.8 trillion. Nancy Pelosi held that up for politics. For politics. And I'm making the point that you had months of people getting crushed where that money would have been a major help. And again, the businesses that no longer exist and that not coming back. If Nancy Pelosi sat there and did all of this for the kind of politics of it, and now turns around and says, well, why is this deal better? Well, it's better now because, Joe Biden is in office. That is brutal to those people. Look, I hope those people that took the brunt of Nancy Pelosi's gamble and took the brunt of Nancy Pelosi's sacrifice, because it was their sacrifice. It was their businesses that went belly up. It was their lives that got ruined. It was their dinner or their meal where they couldn't necessarily feed themselves for Thanksgiving or had to go to a food bank or whatever else. It was their life that was ruined by this stuff because Nancy Pelosi wanted to play politics because she believed getting Joe Biden was more important than basically keeping and dealing with the general welfare of the population. That is an astonishing, that's an astonishing tale. Now, you could be some Democrat out there and you can have your life being pretty good. You could be at one of those jobs where basically you could work remotely and everything else. And you might agree with Nancy Pelosi. You might say, look, hey, I'm sorry that all of your businesses went belly up. I'm sorry you couldn't feed your kid. I'm sorry you didn't have a Thanksgiving meal. I'm sorry for those 2 or 3 months you had no idea how you're going to make it from point A to point B. But Trump is out of office. So don't you feel better about that at least? While you're being evicted from your home? Yeah, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. Because frankly, whether you believe Donald Trump is the monster that you say he is or not, it is still your job to do your job. Meaning, this is the whole thing about the function of government itself. Your job is to be an honest arbiter, at the very least, have some compassion among the people that you're dealing with. Do you honestly believe that Donald Trump getting $1.8 trillion deal passed in and of itself would have been enough to get him elected? And honestly, if so, then I have no idea what you were doing to make the argument or to make the counter argument for that election. I'm making the point that 1.8 trillion should have had nothing to do with the election. People were in dire straits and you were playing politics. And now when people ask you, you're saying, yes, I'm willing to accept the smaller amount because, Joe Biden and a COVID cure. The COVID cure or the COVID vaccine would have been there anyway. And fact of the matter is, whether Joe Biden would have gotten elected is a wild card. But if indeed you held off on making that deal because you thought it was beneficial to Biden getting in office, That's utterly disgusting, and shame on you if that's what you did. This argument that, yeah, I can accept less money now because Joe Biden is in office and a COVID cure. Again, COVID cure would have been there. Whether Joe Biden would have got in office or not, who knows? But you're the one that's making that connection, Joe Biden, to the deal. That's not me just making that up. That's you making that connection. And I'm making the point that if you thought that that deal with Trump would have gotten Joe Biden, would have made it more difficult for Joe Biden to get in office, I'm saying that's pretty disgusting. There were months on end where you have this situation where people were in dire straits. Like, that's so disgusting. Even now, there's no stimulus bill. And Nancy Pelosi is basically saying, yeah, in a month or so, we'll accept less. The damage has been done. I'm sorry. The damage has been done. Those people aren't getting their businesses back. Those people who are, losing their homes, or those people who are in situations where they weren't sure how they were going to find ways to eat. I'm saying that's fucking horrendous. Like, our country was in a Great Depression type event. And in this moment where you would expect the political parties to do their jobs, to get beyond the political rancor went that much more. And instead of them working with Trump, they decided, no, we're going to tank it. We're going to crash it. We're going to try to make this worse. We're not going to give him this deal because giving him this deal may make it look a little bit easier. He may seem more presidential in the moment, despite the fact that he has nearly 300,000 people dead. We're still not going to give him the deal. That's utterly disgusting. Utterly disgusting. That's not a master strategist anything. The Democratic Party lost seats in that election. So this is not them doing something that, oh wow, master strategist Nancy Pelosi totally pulled this off. They lost seats. And again, you have no idea whether or not holding that off is the thing that clinched it for Joe Biden. Honestly considering that Joe Biden didn't represent anything when he ran in this race. If Joe Biden would have backed Medicare for all, Joe Biden would have had this election in the bag. Meaning, it wouldn't have been this playing, game nonsense. All of this politicization, all of this games playing, just because you don't want to do the goddamn job of ensuring the public welfare. Yeah, this is a goddamn shame. Goddamn shame. Nancy Pelosi should be ashamed of herself for that. I understand she thinks that, hey, I got Joe Biden in and you got to crack a few eggs if you want to get this done, et cetera, et cetera. But fact of the matter is, Joe Biden, I have to be honest, would have won that race with or without that. Marcus Will. Thanks, Marcus Will, man. Jamal, what's the alternative phrase then? Alternative phrase for what? Steffi B? Steffi G? Oh, you mean defund the police? Oh, I think you mean defund the police. I don't know the alternative phrase, especially not in the moment. I mean, I do like that it's provocative. And I do like that when people talk about it, there are going to be some people that are going to cast you as you're trying to get rid of all of the funding. You're trying to abolish the police. And that would be basically the way it's castigated, right? That's going to be the way it's attacked. And that what makes the politics a little difficult. By the same token, the fact that people are talking about it in and of itself is something. And the very fact that you talk about it, you will have some people who say, okay, what does it mean? And you would have those people say, oh, okay, they're not talking about getting rid of all of the money for it. Meaning, if it wasn't for the provocative statement, you might have people who would not know about it at all. And so you may get this thing of like, yes, you're going to lose X number, but you're going to gain X number. And that's the best that you can get out of that deal because you got to find some kind of way to get it out. There may be no path other than something provocative. And that provocation itself may be the thing that kind of launches it on. When they ask people, what did it mean? People seem to understand, at least in the polling, that they weren't trying to abolish the police. So that's why, like I'm saying, wishy-washy on it. My initial impression was, oh God, I hate that phrase. As it went on, I still hated the phrase, but I started to get this thing of, well, maybe that works. Maybe the provocation works. So, like I said, I'm not hard on this one, Steffi. I'm not at all. All right, I'm going to end this here. I'm going to end this here. Joe Biden is going to get in office. And just understand, he could have pushed for Medicare for all. 88% of Democrats back it. The majority of the public backs it. You're in the middle of a pandemic. You have 12 million people infected, and you have signs that go beyond those individuals. If any time was the time to push for something like Medicare for all, this would be it. And I got to be honest, this is where I get angry at lefties, because Joe Biden, I don't care if Satan himself was standing across the finish line. This was our time to do that. This was our time to hold them accountable, saying, yeah, no, you're not getting our vote unless this is on the table. Because when else would you get that opportunity? When else would you have a moment that was perfect? Only thing Sanders had to do was turn around and say, you're not going to get my vote without all of these people with me. And he wouldn't do it. AOC wouldn't do it. None of the leftist groups would do it. And so then it boiled down to us as individuals to kind of rise up and do it. And we wouldn't do it either. The majority of us were terrified of Donald Trump. We missed an opportunity. I don't know how long the COVID thing is going to go, but you never let things like this go without taking advantage of it, especially to the better of the society itself. And man, it aggravates me that we weren't able to do it. I'll end this here. I'm going to say like, I'm going to say share, and subscribe. Guys, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you smash that subscription button and hit the bell also, just to make sure that everything is copacetic. It seems like YouTube has been messing around, so we got to work around them. Thanks all. Like, share, and subscribe.